Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for taking some time to join us today for Tech Tuesday. It's been a few years since, maybe not a few years, just it's been a little while since Data Core has presented at one of these. So it's good to be here. And thanks, Bridget and Tech Tuesday team for having us today. Data Core has certainly evolved since our last presentation. So I'll be sharing some of those changes and enhancements during the session. For those of you who are new to Data Core, my name is Alice Chin. I'm the Data Core manager here. I've been with Weill Cornell Medicine for a little over 5 years and have been part of the Data Core team ever since I joined. Prior to joining Weill Cornell Medicine, I spent 11 years in IT management consulting, working for PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM, primarily working in the government sector of the business and working directly with defense contracts. So, Sarah, do you want to just give a quick introduction of yourself as well?
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Ben-Mamar. I'm currently the Associate Director for Research Services. I joined Weill Cornell a little bit more than 2 years ago. In my background, I have a PhD in microbiology, and I have some postdoc experience in biomedical engineering and also civil and environmental engineering. So happy to be here too.
Great. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and get us started. And hopefully this will be interactive too. So if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat and we'll have some time to get to them either during the presentation or at the end. All right. So what we're going to cover today is I'm going to give a high-level overview of Data Core. This may be a review for some of you and new for others. So I'll just spend a little bit of time there. Also want to provide just a little demo of our current cloud environment, which is kind of a new feature that we have in Data Core since the last time we were here, and also just to show you kind of the on-premise environment, and you can kind of compare or see the similarities, and then I'll talk about the differences. I'll talk about how to establish a data core project, and then I'll transition it over to data retention, and then we'll have some time for questions. So what is Data Core? So Data Core is our secure and scalable computing and storage environment, where researchers can share, a collection of data sets and collaboratively work together. They can process and analyze and do computational analysis on that data using a variety of software tools that we can provide, all while meeting the appropriate regulatory requirements to protect the data. I mean, I think that's the key part of Data Core is it's a secure environment that adheres to the standards of what the data provider or the rules around the data that researchers are working within. So this is our kind of our framework. Data Core, I'm going to try to use this laser pointer here. Data Core sits right inside the WCM network. This is our framework, and this kind of shows kind of where it's embedded and kind of the secure layers around it. Data Core is accessed through remote apps, and is available for both internal, whether you're inside on campus logging in, or also we have the ability to securely allow users to gain access or access the core externally when they're off campus. There's controlled firewalls and encryption at each of the different layers. That's kind of where the architecture is that it's layered and embedded in a secure environment that protects the data. Here we have kind of the relation. This slide kind of shows the relationship among the key players and the roles within the Data Core environment. As you can see, it's basically the PI and the Data Core team really drive the processes associated with what goes on in Data Core. There's a lot of coordination that goes on between the data provider, the IRB office to make sure all the governance is in place associated with the data, the research team, making sure that they're signing data core user agreements, saying what you can do inside the environment and what you can take inside of the environment. Let me think, what else is there? We work with data providers to, meet any security requirements that they have associated with the data. So a lot of times we provide, the data core team will provide security attestations just to confirm that our environment has the correct security configurations to host the data. Yeah, we kind of, there's just a whole a data management process in addition to the technical environment that we set up. There's definitely other key components of that as well. Data core is also the gatekeeper of the data going in and out in the environment. A lot of times we work directly with the data provider to put the data inside the data core environment, and the research team access it through there. So they never have like the hands-on access to the data for them to share or disseminate. Data that's going out of the data core goes through an export process, and the data curation team reviews the data going out to ensure that there's no PHI that's being transmitted. And we usually have to double check against the data governance. Most of the time, researchers are in their environment, they're doing statistical analysis, and at the end, they're using their results to either publish or they have aggregate data. So those are the types of things that are permitted to be exported out of the data core environment. So, so that's kind of what our team does. There's a lot of facilitation, there's a lot of data management processes. And I mean, I think our role and job is to be able to provide researchers with that environment to get their work done while meeting regulatory environments or requirements. So some of the key features of data core is that access is managed using the wild Cornell seaweed. We do have the ability to allow external collaborators who are working on studies access to the data core as long as they have someone to sponsor their seaweed through the department. So we do have a lot of projects that work with, collaborators up in Ithaca or even Cornell and NYU. I'm sorry, not Cornell, Columbia and NYU, Mount Sinai, whoever is part of the study's governance and is authorized personnel, that we can facilitate access to the data core, even if they're not part of Weill Cornell Medicine. We provide remote access through remote apps. We provide data transfers upon request. We have ways to either receive data physically, and we have processes to transfer data electronically, given the size of the data. If it's within a certain size limit, we can use transferred out while, or we could set up a direct SFTP transfer between the two data points. We have a process for archiving data upon project completion, and kind of the operating systems that our projects usually reside on is we have Windows 2016, the server operating system on the AWS cloud and on on-premise VMs. In addition, we do have several GPU nodes that are hosting data core projects using a Linux operating system. One of the other things is so data core provides just a consistent interface and access for all the users in the project. In each project, we set up the applications required by the project team. Typically it's SAS and Stata and our most popular statistical analysis tools. I think a lot of people use Anaconda and Python as well. But whatever when we set up a project, we gather the applications needed for that study. We can also host relational databases, kind of whatever your project requirements are. We typically can provide that configuration. In addition, each project has their own kind of storage space for the data they're hosting. Each project has a read-only source data, which contains the data that we receive from the data provider, and it can't be changed. A shared space where the team can collaborate and share files with one another, as long as each individual's private work area folder. So we just allow a collaborative workflow for among the researchers in a project team. All right. This is just a little snapshot of where data core is currently. It continues to grow each and every year. I think when I first started, we were at project probably in the 60s. And I remember it was a big celebration when we hit 100 projects. We're currently at 173 projects, of which currently I think the active projects are 82 projects. And some projects go through a life cycle. Currently, we have 59 active PIs and over 270 users, and that number fluctuates daily. But over the course of time, we've had 75 PIs come through data core and over 600 users. So the number of projects continue to increase each year. What we've seen is once a study is hosted in data core, we'll see additional studies kind of build upon that. So they'll get reuse agreements for data that already exists in data core, and they'll conduct a different study using that same data. And I mean, I think that relates to kind of like the data catalog that we have, that kind of shows the different data sets that we have here at Weill Cornell Medicine, or what's available. And I think that's just helped grow the whole research data management lifecycle. So Data Core is the recommended platform for sensitive data here at Weill Cornell Medicine. Typically, if anyone's working with PHI, they're usually just directed directly to us for us to host their environment. Some of our notable data sets and studies. One of our biggest data providers is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. We currently host 22 active CMS studies. Recently, we received approval to host CMS data in the cloud environment, which was a huge feat. That required our team to submit a data management security attestation questionnaire, where we had to validate 113 security requirements that our environment would meet up to those standards, and we recently got approval. So we have the ability to host CMS data in the cloud, which was huge. In addition, we host Insight. It's another data. We host a lot of projects using Insight data. Our environment also, we have a study using data from the Defense Health Agency. Pediatric epilepsy is one of our larger projects, in addition to projects associated with SEER Medicare data. So these are kind of our big kind of data providers that we work with. In addition, like the Population Health Sciences is probably the main department that uses data core, but we also support other projects from different departments, such as radiology and pathology. The data core also supports student capstone projects, and we also support classroom projects as well. So I think that's about it for the overview. So that's just a high level overview of data core in general. And I'm just gonna go move into kind of the demo portion of it. Let's see here. Here we go. Sure. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and go into data core, one of our newest data core in the cloud environments. Let me see if I can get over there quickly. All right. So as I mentioned before, data core is brokered through remote apps. So you log into remoteapps.weill.cornell.edu. Based on what project you have access to, you will get there would be a project icon obviously I'm in most of the projects, so that's why I have a lot of data core projects here. So I'm just going to go ahead and log into our kind of our test project, our test cloud project. Just show you kind of what the interface is like. And I don't know if anyone's used data core before, but you'll probably see a lot of similarities between the cloud environment and what you currently log into. So to into it. All right, so as you can see, it's just a 2016 environment. Again, it's a remote desktop, Windows operating system, like I'm logging in through a Mac. But this is what I see when I go through remote apps. It's basically, we describe it sometimes as screen painting of the environment. So all of this is hosted on our, well, this is hosted in the cloud. So that's, but I mean, kind of interface wise, it's just your typical Windows environment. We have all the your tools that are available here. We have Anaconda. I mean, and we can install applications based on whatever your study needs. One of the limitations we do have currently in the cloud is Microsoft Office. We have some institutional licensing issues with hosting Microsoft Office in the cloud. However, I think we are working on that right now. And we should be able to provide that hopefully shortly. Right now in the cloud, we are able to immediately offer LibreOffice or OpenOffice as an alternative. Many of our researchers tend to not use Office in their data core environments, but they're more active in their statistical tools like SAS and R. So yeah, so we would have like R and SAS available to them. Data storage wise, you would see, this is a project. So normally you see the shared folder and the source folder. So, but that's essentially basically your data core environment. It's accessible. It's accessible by logging in. So that's there. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to chime in. And then for the on-prem environment is very similar too. Let me just see if I can log into an on-prem environment. This one is our on-prem environment. And as you can see, it looks very similar, whether this is a project hosted on premise versus the cloud. So very seamless environment. So as you can see, the tools are there, applications are there. And sorry, and the same, your project folders are there as well. So, to the environment. I don't know if there's a question. Do you have an access for Neil had a question about a demo for accessing the Linux GPU nodes. I actually don't. I actually don't have those. Our team handles the data core projects, but the scientific computing team are the administrators of that process. But that's actually that would be something good to show, Neil, for the future. Thanks. Yeah, that's definitely been an enhancement since the last time we did this presentation, but great question. All right. Some of the benefits of the cloud environment versus using a virtual machine. So with the cloud environment, we have the ability to scale the resources as needed, like CPU and RAM, versus on the virtual machine, you're using shared resources across other data core projects. So you are limited by the amount of resources that on the machine that's hosting your project. A lot of times what we've seen in a life cycle of a project is there'll be busy times, or there'll be times where there's higher computing needs, whether they just got data and they need to do a lot of processing with the initial read, and that takes a lot of computational resources, and then it dies a little bit because you're working with smaller subsets, or so that's one of the benefits of the cloud, is that you can scale it as you need it. If you need to increase memory because you're running a long job, it's a lot. There's a lot more flexibility to do that. In addition, you also get a dedicated computing environment, a dedicated environment for your project. Currently, if you're hosting a project on premise, you're sharing resources again with other data core projects. Even though your project, you only have access to the data and the tools for your project, the resources is limited to the number of CPUs or RAM on that machine. And if somebody else is running on a different project that's on a different data core project that's running on the same machine, you might be not battling for resources, but sharing resources, and that's that can affect your ability to process on time. So that's one of the benefits of the cloud. In addition, the cloud also offers just enhanced security features. There's just so many more tools in the cloud environment that can do logging and monitoring, and they're just already built in. So that's another benefit that we've seen. In addition, that you also when you're using cloud resources, you can just pay as you use. Currently, if you're hosting a project on a virtual machine, the machine's always up and running. We always have to pay for it. Here, there's a little bit more flexibility, where you can bring it up when you need to do the processing. A lot of times, studies will have these life cycles where they're processing for a publication, and then it'll die for 6 months, or they're not working on it for 6 months until they get some other results. So it provides just a little bit of cost flexibility that kind of suits the way you're running your project. So that's another reason to that we've explored this as well, and another push for that. All right. So I think that is what I have, just kind of in terms of demoing the environment. I'll just stop right there to see if there's any other questions, and then I'll just kind of go over some of the processes involved with, getting a data core project set up, if you needed to. All right, I'm just going to keep moving on. So establishing a new data core project. Look at my notes here. All right, so if you have a study that's working with confidential data and you need a secure collaborative environment, you can submit a request to have a new data core project startup this is actually not the onboarding form, but it's the work request. Sorry about that. I had the wrong screenshot there, but let me go ahead and walk you through what the onboarding form is. You can find the onboarding form in the service catalog. You just go into My Help Desk, and you can type in Data Core onboarding request. And here you just enter in the information needed to set up your project. We capture the kind of the basic details, what kind of project you have, whether it's a research project, classroom, student capstone. We capture kind of your storage requirements, your processing requirements, what tools you might need, who needs access to the data core, to your research environment. Also, we collect the governance at this stage so we can manage it. And this, once you fill in the basic data core project requirements, it gets submitted to our team, and then we review it and we start setting up your environment. One thing I wanted to talk about as well is just kind of the cost associated with data core. Data core is a fee-based service. Our rates are included in this in the service catalog. They can be found on the ITS website under data core. We charge per user using a sliding scale. So essentially, the more if the larger your project, the costs decrease as you add additional users, just because the amount of work that it costs to set up a project is really just a lot of upfront cost. And the service is not trying to, make money. We were really just trying to cover cost at this rate, and that's kind of where our rates are based out of. So we have published rates, and we use, ITS provides storage rates, research storage rates, and we charge, just directly for that. A lot of our software, we get volume discounts from the institution. I think our SaaS licenses are institutional license, so and other applications as well. And if you ever need to set up a data core project and you're wondering how much is this going to cost us, you can just reach out to our team and we can spin up a quote for you, just so you have an understanding of how much it costs to set up a data core project. The other form that we use a lot within data core is the work request form. Anytime you need to reach the data core team or do anything with your data core project, you would submit a data core work request form. And let's see here if I have that up as well. So the typical request that we get for data core, and our team manages these requests on a daily basis, is whether you're importing data into the environment, exporting data, adding and removing users, closing out a project, installing new software, anything that you need for your environment. This would be the form to communicate that with us. All right. And so this, I'm kind of wrapping up a little bit. I just wanted to show you a little bit about how data core kind of fits in the broader picture. It fits in kind of in the larger context of research data management. In addition just to providing a computing and storage environment, we actually are part of kind of a bigger picture where we also have a data catalog that, that has a repository of, data sets that we currently have at WCM that we've hosted before. There's also archiving that we do after a project's completed. There's regulations and just kind of institutional policy of what to do with that data when a study's completed. And I think on that, I'm going to segue over to you, Sarah, to talk a little bit about data retention. That's okay.
Of course. Thanks, Alice. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to give a kind reminder about archiving your data. So in order for you to be compliant with the new Cornell University data retention policy, I wanted to remind you that every time you publish a paper, or every time your grant closes, or if you're living well Cornell, you are expected to make a data retention request through the wider application. You can access the wider application through the website. Sorry, the URL that I posted on the top of the slide. So basically what you have to do through wider is to, if you have already put your raw data set, for example, in a public repository, you need to indicate within wider the exact location. So provide a link that will show us the exact location of your data set in a public repo. If you have not done that for any reason, you have also the possibility to ask for your data set to be archived in the institutional AWS storage account. you have to do that for any raw data set that you have. If you have data that you have been collected through an external data provider, and that you had to, for example, maybe destroy at the end of your study or things like that, we're not expecting you to archive this data, but we're expecting you to inform us through wider application how you access those data. So you need to provide instruction in order for anyone else to be able to access exactly the same data set that you've been able to access to. And of course, the Cornell University policy expects you to also archive your lab notebooks. And this is why we strongly encourage you to use a lab archive. If you're not using it, feel free to reach out to myself or Michele Fortes, who is also here, to get any information about that. It will simplify your life a lot. So don't hesitate to ask about it. And so, yeah, the Cornell University policy encourages you to deposit as much as possible in public repository. So if you have the opportunity to put your raw data set in a public repo, please go ahead. And it will simplify also your work through wider, because you just need to provide the link to access the data set, the location in the repo, in order for us to have access. So much simpler. And don't forget to add a methods file when you do a retention request through wider. So the methods file is a document that should detail the analytical steps that you perform on your data set up to the published form of your data set. This is a very, very summarized message here. So if you have any question, don't hesitate to reach out to the library. We obviously also have a website that you can go and look at to get also some answers. And yeah, if you would like to have a consultation because you have some specific questions about your data set, please don't hesitate to reach out. There is a link also through this website to ask for consultation, for example. And it's totally free, of course. So yeah, don't hesitate. And with this, I'll give it back to you, Alice.
Great. Let me see. I think there might be a question here. Oh, that's Terry sent the link to the research data repository. Great.
Thanks, Terry.
Oh, just in the chat, Terry's posted the link to wider. Great. Thanks, Terry. I think that concludes my formal presentation. I don't know if anyone has any questions or just happy to discuss anything. Pretty quiet, pretty riveting, I guess. Let me introduce. Sorry, was there somebody who had a question?
I did have a question that, so I came in a little late. If this happens to the recorded, this presentation. Sorry.
No, yeah, I'm having a little trouble.
Sorry about that. Let me try again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was wondering if this is recorded because I came a little late.
Yes, it is recorded.
Okay. Oh, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I have the members of the data core team listed here. Feel free to reach out to us anytime if you have any questions. And I think this presentation will be available as well. If there's anything. Yeah, so yeah, we have a kind of the data core is just supported just among multiple groups across ITS, in addition to the data curation team, which is part of the library. That's where Sarah and myself and our two data management specialists kind of fall under Eric and Patrick. We're kind of the main data curation team. In addition, data core is supported and wouldn't be able to exist without the support from ITS. We have two system administrators at the CIC up in Ithaca that work closely with us, but in addition, we just are constantly working with ITS operations, the cloud team, security team, the clinical services team, which basically kind of helps support our Citrix operations with remote apps, and also the PMO who just drives a lot of these initiatives, whether it's completing the security attestation questionnaire or just migrating projects into the cloud. That's all behind the scenes of making DataCore run. So very thankful for this team here. And then this is just a page of useful links if you guys want to refer back to the presentation if you need any to be directed into anything. So that's I think that's the end of my formal presentation. I don't know if there's anything else, Bridget, that we need to do.
I think we're all set unless anyone has lingering questions. Feel free to pop them in the chat. Otherwise, yeah, I think we can wrap up, and I'll send out a follow-up email to everyone who registered that includes some resources and a link to this reporting.
I do have one last question, actually.
Sure.
Could you elaborate on the differences or like how the roles are split between DataCore and the scientific computing team? If I'm doing a lot of scientific computing, who would I reach out to for different questions when there might be kind of overlap in terms of needing computing resources like those Linux GPU nodes?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we work collaboratively with them. I know there's a process probably with the scientific computing team in terms of actual resources. Like I don't think I have the biggest or I wouldn't have the biggest understanding of what resources are available for high performance computing resources. However, if you're working with confidential data, the processes associated with that data management, I think would come to our team, and we would just we could facilitate tools going on. Once the project is stood up, we would be involved in the management of the project. But in terms of actual resources, I think you would need to reach out to the scientific computing team. And if your study involves sensitive data, it would involve us as well.
Okay, great, thanks. So essentially what you're saying is that, you know, when it comes to the sensitive data, we reach out to you in order to set up hosting that data, managing that data, and then when it comes to compute resources, we would reach out to them.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
it will.
great.
We could also, I mean, if you are working with sensitive data and you needed high resource computing, we would reach out to the scientific computing team as well to see, you know, what resources are available for this. Because there's just there's a limited number of resources that are configured properly to handle confidential data. So we would just need to gather the project requirements.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure. All right. Any other questions? All right. I think that's it. Bridget, are we good?
We're good. Thank you so much, Alice and Sarah, and thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.